Pittsburgh. You're watching On the Money with the man I call BQ. Brian, I want us to talk about, I'm a history guy.
Yeah.
We're making history.
We are.
Not in a good way.
That's right.
And so I want to rattle off some stuff. One of the things that just alarms me, and we see this all the time in the business that we're in, that there are good markets and bad markets, but the geopolitical events that are happening right now are just history-making events.
History-making.
Let's start with the first war in Europe in over 70 years. And yet, how many portfolios are you seeing from folks calling in off the show, and they've got 401k money and IRA money heavily allocated into the international markets?
That's right. That's right.
That's
Heavily.
The first war.
Yes.
You're looking at inflation that has been running rampant. We haven't seen moves. It's the worst bond market since 1981.
Yeah.
And the Fed has made a mandate. They will beat this inflation, and they're raising rates. And on that point, the last time they met, not too long ago, they raised 75 basis points, 0.75%.
Yeah.
BQ, the last time they did that, I was a senior in high school.
Right.
It's history-making movement.
I know. By the way, I was a junior in high school.
I know.
I was
a
a junior.
I love 4 mid-90 boys. I love it.
Yeah.
My son just graduated high school.
Yeah.
This one got me. 4 years ago, he's a freshman. Walking him into the freshman building. I drove him, right, because he didn't have a car. Do you know what our national debt was 4 years ago?
What was it?
20 trillion.
Yeah.
You know where we're at today?
What is it?
Over 30.
Yeah.
In
right.
4 years.
Right.
There are so many geopolitical risks that are coming down the line, and I think the modern retiree, especially in Pittsburgh, sophisticated investors, but just kind of got comfortable hitting an easy button on investing.
Well, when the market's going up for as long as it was, people think it's easy.
Correct.
It's never this easy.
Never.
When you see kids starting to put their college money that they're getting from their grandparents into Robinhood and making a lot of money, it's a good time to probably exit. You know, Warren Buffett, most people don't know this, but he hasn't bought anything probably in the last, I don't know, 5 years, 8 years, somewhere around there. It's been a long time. Berkshire Hathaway shareholders were getting upset that he wasn't buying anything.
Right.
Do you know what he's doing right now? He's buying like crazy.
Buying like crazy.
He's buying like crazy because he waits for times like this. So many people are not Warren Buffett, though.
Right.
They do the opposite,
They do
right?
the opposite.
They do the opposite, and that's where people get themselves in trouble. And these rising inflation rates, bad bond markets, this is bad stuff for people's portfolios because typically when we're looking to hedge risk, and you know this, when we're dealing with retirement dollars, we have to have a way to hedge risk for
Correct.
people. Because our clients, because we're dealing with those that are approaching retirement and in retirement, we can't afford to lose large sums of money for them.
Correct.
And we have to be able to protect them from that. And these folks, what are happening is when they're losing money, they may have to delay retirement, they may have to go back to work, and this is not where we want to be. The question is this, and nobody's talking about it, but this market's really bad. I mean, could we start seeing 201ks again?
No, I hope not.
I hope not either, because that was devastating to people.
Sure.
Absolutely devastating.
Well, they had to stay in the workforce longer.
That's
When
right.
you look back at the history, and I think this is important to point out. You were giving me some stats. I love this. So we looked at some target date funds. You talk about the easy button. You know, everyone in a 401k I feel has this target date fund now.
Yeah, right.
Do you know right now we're mid-year, right? The 2025 target date. That's 2022. We're 3 years away from this.
Yeah.
Is down over 14%.
That's right.
These folks are 3 years away from walking out and retiring.
Yeah.
And they're down almost 15% mid-year.
Right.
Then you go in and look at 2030 fund. That's people getting ready to hit those retirement-ready
Yep.
zones, right? They're down over 15%. This market, if everyone managing their money the same way, there are so many concerns because of the history and where bonds and stocks are both feeling this correlation together.
That's right.
What is the current modern retiree in Pittsburgh to do?
Well, I had somebody come in with a 2022 retirement fund down over 20%.
Oh my
Now, here's what we got to remember. Mutual funds are a business.
Yes.
So what happens when you have all these target date funds out there? All these companies have a 2022 target fund, 2023, 2024, so they're competing on return.
Correct.
Right? So what happens when
Becomes
you
a
compete
commodity.
It becomes a commodity, and these funds are probably taking more risk than others to try to increase
Correct.
return. But what the investor was told was that, hey, rather than trying to figure out what to choose within your 401k, just choose a date in which you want to retire, and we'll make sure that that portfolio rebalances along the way, in the hopes that when you approach retirement, that portfolio is more conservative. Now, I don't know about you, but a 2022 retirement fund that lost over 20% is not conservative.
Not at all.
Somebody losing 20% right before they retire. What we've learned from statistics is that when people retire at the top of a bull market, there's a higher probability of running out of money.
Correct.
And as you approach retirement, when you've won the game, when you've accumulated enough money, there is no reason to take a large amount of risk anymore. It becomes all about principal protection because
Correct.
the losses will hurt you more than the gains will help you in
Correct.
retirement. So it's really about being efficient with protection, right? And thinking about your purchasing power long time versus your account value and trying to get big rates of return.
Which is what I love with what you and your team do with utilizing alternative asset classes and sophisticated option strategies
That's
to
right.
help hedge that risk. You know, you
And I don't think people understand that exists, Joe.
Correct. They don't. They think it's a target date fund
because
and we're good.
you utilize the same strategy. We talk about it all the time.
Correct.
Because you're only going to get it through alternative asset classes and different option strategies, this type of protection
Correct.
to hedge against the risk. Because for folks that don't understand hedging risk, we typically use bonds to offset the risk of stocks. But when bonds and stocks become correlated,
Correct.
that becomes a problem.
A major problem.
So the only way to truly hedge against risk is through alternative asset classes and very sophisticated option
You know, it's fun to
strategies.
look at history. We're talking about history, and you go back to 08 and 09, and one of the only airlines that really survived, I mean, through that whole thing was Southwest.
Yeah.
And when you look at what they were doing, they were hedging their biggest risk, and
That's
that
right.
was jet fuel.
Yep.
And when jet fuel went to over $140, they were hedged, and that's what they're doing now when this gas continues to run. And so big corporations will hedge their risk.
Yep.
The modern retiree in Pittsburgh needs to hedge some risk because you can't manage all your money the same way. You ever been sailing?
I have.
It's a frightening
It's
experience.
amazing to me that you can actually move into the wind.
Move in. And what do you have to do to do that? You have to adjust the sail.
That's right.
And I think so many folks are just thinking, well, no, I'm just going to set and forget it and wait for the wind to come back in my way.
Yeah.
That is a very dangerous way to walk into retirement.
That's right.
Hoping on an exterior factor. Control what you can control.
That's right, and that's why having a written retirement plan is so important. And so many people, and I know you experience this in your practice, so many people come in and they have investments, right? And they have this pile of stuff. We call it their POS, their
Yeah.
pile of stuff.
Yes.
And that's all it is.
That's
There's
it.
no strategy around how to utilize it, how to maximize return from it, how to reduce risk, and more importantly, how to generate cash flow, which is the most important thing, is generating cash flow, because cash flow allows you to create memories. How many people out there are not creating memories with their families, with their grandkids, with their kids, because they're afraid to spend their money, because no one's taught them how to use it? Every advisor out there, the majority of them out there, do not focus and specialize in the areas that we focus on, which is the distribution phase.
It's
It's
so
a
key.
very important phase of retirement, and everybody thinks the strategies and techniques that you use during your accumulation years are the same you can use.
It's not. You have to
during-
adjust the
You
sails.
have to adjust, and that's what people have to know, Joe.
Folks, that's why it's so important in these markets, in these historic times, that you have a clear understanding of what we like to say the hidden risks sitting inside your portfolio. But to do that, we need you to dial 888-382-1298. Brian and his team are standing by to help you be and stay retirement ready. And what they want to offer is a no obligation complimentary retirement readiness review. And in that review is a detailed risk analysis. You cannot march into retirement without knowing how much hidden risk you have sitting in there. So today's the day. Take control of your retirement and dial that number.
Call 888-382-1298 for your own complimentary retirement readiness review and risk report. Why take unnecessary risk when you don't have to? At 65 years old, would you drive to the grocery store at 100 miles per hour if 40 miles per hour would get you there safely? When nearing retirement, are you still driving your investment accounts like you're in your 30s or 40s? Have you changed your investment election since you first chose them in your retirement accounts at work? Call Brian and his team at 888-382-1298 for your own complimentary retirement readiness review and risk report. Do you know exactly how much risk you are taking in your investment accounts? Now that you've accumulated a nest egg for retirement, you want to be certain the risk you're taking in those investments matches your goals and objectives. Call Brian and his team, 888-382-1298 for your own complimentary retirement readiness review and risk report, or use the QR code below to begin scheduling your appointment. You may not have time to recover from taking too much risk.
Welcome to On the Money with Secure Money. I'm your host, Brian Quaranta, and I'm here with a good friend of mine, Joe Wilson,
BQ.
another financial advisor from Ohio.
Are we allowed to be in the same
I don't know.
room? I mean, my God, rival football teams, and here we sit.
I know.
Friends.
I know.
Amigos.
And I thank you so much for coming and doing this with me because, You know, you've been practicing financial planning about as long as I have, probably the last 25 years, close to it or so.
We're getting old.
Yeah, we are getting old. Although you're sending your kids to college.
Yes, I am.
And I have a 3-year-old and a 4-month-old.
I think that means I win.
You win.
I win.
I don't know who did it right. But, you know, I want to know, how are you guys dealing with inflation? Because, you know, the biggest problem we're dealing with right now is that, you know, it's the worst start to the stock market in, what, 70 years, I believe.
Brutal. Yeah.
Worst start to the bond market in the last
Since
30
81.
years. Since 81.
Yeah.
You know how old I was in 81? Very young.
We were young.
Very, very young. So, I mean, I know we're seeing it in our office, right?
Yeah.
Where people are coming in and they're saying, look, it's costing me more to live.
Sure.
I need more income.
Sure.
What are you guys doing to address it right now?
I think right now, and we talked a little bit about this at lunch, I think it's so important, and what I love about what you do and with your clients, and we try to do the same, is we want a detailed written income plan.
Yep.
Because even though we're talking about inflation, I think it's been this silent tax that's just been attacking these portfolios, especially those folks that have just crossed over into retirement.
Yeah.
But what we want to look at is inflation's hitting everyone differently. Right?
Yep.
Just because some client likes to do travel and maybe stay at hotels and go over to Europe, that's a different inflation rate than maybe someone that just likes to hang out and go hiking in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And so even though the average inflation rate is one of the highest we've ever seen in 40 years,
9+%?
9+%,
Right.
it's affecting the modern retiree differently. And it all comes back to personal, comprehensive, individual written income planning.
I love that you shared that, because I don't think people realize it. I mean, if you're a retiree that is in your go-go years, right? Go, and you're traveling the world and traveling the country, compared to the person that might just be staying home taking care of their grandkids and tending to their garden.
Yeah, it's a different rate.
The cost of their living, or the cost of their inflation, is much, much different. Because travel's up 40%, gas is up 100%, right? And it's costing more to do those things.
Had a good friend that just flew to Italy, took his whole family to Italy.
Yeah.
And when he came back, said, how was it over there? And he's like, the cost to fly was the most expensive tickets they had ever purchased, ever. And they travel annually. And he goes, he got over there, and the dollar has gotten so strong, there are some benefits, but they've raised all the prices on the hotels to combat that. So, you know, for a traveler and many retirees I know in Cincinnati, and I know how they are here in Pittsburgh, you know, we have some ugly winters. We want to get out of here. And that modern retiree is definitely probably facing an inflation rate more than just 9%. And I'm not sure everyone watching the show has planned that into their individual plan.
No, because most people focus on the wrong number. They focus on their account balance number, not their future purchasing power.
That's right.
Right? Because, and one of the things that, you know, I know you do differently at your practice as I do, is that we focus in a different area of financial planning than most firms do. Most firms focus on that first phase of retirement where they're just accumulating somebody's money. But there's a phase that you shift to in retirement where you're starting to distribute that money to yourself. And, you know, we're one of the only financial or professional services that don't have specialties. Everybody thinks financial planners are the same. I mean, if you hurt your knee, you would go to a knee doctor.
Right.
If you had an issue with your heart, you'd go to a heart doctor.
Cardiologist.
And with financial planning, it has not yet been understood that there are people that specialize in different areas of financial planning.
And retirement income.
Yeah, and you and I both believe in the importance of having a written retirement plan, a true income plan. And this is where we can make all the bad things happen on paper.
That's right.
You know, so
we test it.
We test it. And I think that's important, because the biggest fear of most people in retirement, and I don't know if you experience this, but people will come in and they'll say, look, we're at a point in our life where we can't afford to take another big market loss.
That's right.
We can't afford to you know, not have our income coming in on a monthly basis, because we need that income to live off of.
To keep the standard of living and stay in the retirement that we've dreamed of.
Right. And you know, at least in Pittsburgh, I bet you 85–90% of the people, Joe, that come through the office are not retiring with a pension. So, you know, they're utilizing their 401ks, their IRAs as a source of income.
Years and years of work to save that money.
And I think what's really frustrating about it is that no one's ever really taught them how to start utilizing these accounts as a stream of income. And the problem is that when you pull money out of these accounts, you actually have to pay taxes on it.
Yeah.
So if you've got 9.1% inflation and then you have to pay taxes on that money, you can see how that's starting to compress your purchasing power very, very, very quickly.
That's right.
So, if someone's watching, I mean, what best practices do you guys follow in order to help someone give peace of mind in retirement so that they don't run the risk of running out of money?
I got to tell you this story. We had someone that called in off of our show
Yeah.
not too long ago, and they came in with their retirement savings. They had done a great job of saving. There's quite a bit of money. Her concern was, do I have enough to enter retirement?
Yeah.
And she had amassed a good amount of money for her spending. It was well within reach. Here's the challenge, and I know you're going to know what I'm talking about. We call it if planning. And she started the conversation like this. She was like, Brian, Joe, if I earn 6%,
Yeah.
and if inflation is at 2%,
Right.
and if I can just keep taking only 4% out, this Monte Carlo system thing here says I'm good. One, I'm like, well, that's if planning, and Monte Carlo sounds like a really bad casino in Vegas, right?
Yeah.
And so it's if planning. The challenge is we're seeing one of the worst starts to the market, and it doesn't have to just go down and come right back up. And I think so many folks have been lulled to sleep about this amazing run-up we've had in the market.
Great point.
But bad markets can hang on around a while.
Yeah.
2000, 2001, 2002, that was a 42% decline in the market. So if you're entering retirement, you're going to take money out, and you start in those types of years, you can't keep an if 4% withdrawal rate. And we already know inflation's not at 2%. So right then and there, I looked at it and I said, I don't know how to tell you other than 3 of the things that you said have to happen aren't happening this year.
Yeah, and that becomes a problem.
And that's the challenge with doing a financial plan once. It is an ongoing, comprehensive plan. And I know that's what you all do.
Yeah, and this is why reviews are so important, because the game does change from year to year as variables change.
Because the market changes.
Market changes, tax rates change, inflation rates change. And so things need to change along the way. Folks, I will tell you, if you're at a point in your life where you're concerned about potentially running out of money, or you don't want to run the risk of not being able to do the things that you promised yourself you were going to do in retirement, I want you to call the number on the screen, 1-888-382-1298, and I want you to get scheduled for your complimentary retirement readiness review. And I want to give you an inflation report with that, something that's going to help you understand where you are right now and where you need to go. Again, call the number on the screen. It's 1-888-382-1298, and tell our folks that answer the phone that you want to schedule your complimentary retirement readiness review today, and also get your inflation report with it. Again, 1-888-382-1298, or you can scan the QR code at the bottom of the screen. Thanks for watching.
Call 888-382-1298 for your retirement readiness review with inflation report. Inflation continues to hit all-time highs. Will your investments provide you with income you need in retirement? Are you losing purchasing power of your savings? Don't let runaway inflation erode your retirement dreams. Now's the time to act to be certain you have an income strategy that overcomes the effects of inflation. Call Brian and his team at 888-382-1298 for your no-cost retirement readiness review with inflation report. You might have the savings you need today to weather this storm, but how will inflation affect your nest eggs 5, 10, 15 years from now? Discover the peace of mind you deserve. Call Brian and his team, 888-382-1298 for your no-cost retirement readiness review with inflation report, or use the QR code to schedule your appointment today.
Welcome to On the Money with Secure Money. I'm your host, Brian Quaranta, and in studio with me today is my good friend, Joe Wilson.
BQ, thanks
from
for having
Cincinnati,
me.
Ohio.
I can't believe you just said that word on Pittsburgh airwaves.
Someday we're going to do a show during football season.
We have to.
Pittsburgh and Cincinnati.
We have to.
It'll be a lot of fun. You know, we're talking about the greatest trick ever played. Not the greatest play, but the greatest trick.
Yeah, Boy,
now, when we first talked about this topic, you would think, like, what is the greatest trick ever played? Would it be like a hat trick by Wayne Gretzky?
Yeah, it could be.
It could be. But tell us, what is the greatest trick ever played on all of us when it comes to retirement planning?
I think you have to go back in history, and I
Yeah.
love history. When you go back and look at what retirement used to be,
Yeah.
right? You know, mom and dad would go work somewhere, and they'd
Yeah.
work, and they would be there for 30 plus years, and then
Right.
there was a big retirement party, and they get the watch, and they get the party, and
Yeah.
maybe a little vacation trip, and then they got this glorious pension,
Oh,
this
yeah.
mailbox money that came from that company for as long as they lived.
Right.
Right around that 1980s, you started seeing a big shift,
Mm-hmm.
right, away from that into this 401k market. And here's the trick. The government was brilliant because what we know is if you put money in the market and allow time and compound interest to work in your favor,
Yep.
it is the eighth wonder of the world.
Right.
And what the government did is said, BQ, why don't you just take this little bit of money? We're going to give you a tax break on this seed. You'll
Yep.
put money in a 401k and an IRA. We're going to give you a tax break on it. We're just going to let it grow 20, 30 years. And when you go to retire way down there and it's time to harvest it, you can pay us tax then. So you got a break on the seed, but when it's time to harvest the corn, honk, honk, it's tax time.
It's tax time.
And what we've seen is a buildup in these qualified plans. And so the government, man, they're like a fat kid sitting just waiting on the deli to open because they're going to go in with sandwiches, two hands, because they haven't been taxed on that
Right,
money.
yeah.
And this is a great opportunity for the government to help pay off some of this debt. My God, we got to talk about the debt.
I look at it as almost like, I mean, think about having a shareholder, you know, think about any business owner. You have a partner, right?
Right.
And that partner doesn't show up for work.
Yeah.
They have, you know, no skin in the game at all. They don't give
None.
you any advice on how to operate the
Zero.
business or anything. However, they get a share of your business.
Yeah.
Now, take it one step further. They can change the rules on you
Oh, yes.
in the middle of the game.
Yes.
So they can decide one day when you wake up, they can say, you know what, we were thinking about only taking 30% from you, but now we're going to take 40%
Yeah,
from you.
whatever they want.
And I always look at it like this. Let's say that you only contributed ever in your lifetime $15,000 into an IRA or a 401k or a 403b, right? Any type of tax-deferred retirement
Yes.
account. Let's say you never made another contribution again.
Okay.
So that meant you got a tax deduction on that $15,000 you put in. However, let's say that we get some really good returns and that $15,000 grows to $1 million.
Okay.
You're telling me that when I want to pull out that million,
Yeah.
I'm going to be taxed on all $1 million, and they are a shareholder.
Shareholder.
In all $1 million.
It's not all your money, BQ.
My 3-year-old would know that that is not a
It's
fair
a
game.
losing game.
So why is it that, you know, when I meet people and I say, tell me a little bit about, you know, your current plan and what you're doing and the strategies that you have in place, and I'd say, tell me a little bit about your income plan, your tax strategy, your investment strategy, your healthcare strategy, your legacy strategy. Tell me a little bit about what tax planning is going on right now. Are you moving any money from taxable accounts to tax-free accounts? And they said, we're not having those discussions. Most of the discussions people have is about how the investments performed last year.
Right.
Why is it that you think, and you know, I've got my opinions, but what's your opinion on why people are not getting advice about these types of things to make their planning better?
Right. Well, one, usually some of these big box firms don't have the tools or
They
the
don't have the
ability
tools.
to give the advice on it. And
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Yep.
And what separates us as fiduciaries, I know with your practice, it's if you're a fiduciary.
Right.
And you guys do comprehensive wealth planning.
Right.
And so there's just a fundamental difference right there because they've been focused on growing the assets.
Right.
And if there is a Roth conversion, we're going to talk about that in a bit, that money has to come out and move out of that account to another account, and you have to pay the tax on the year that you do that.
Right.
Now, we'll talk about why you might want to do that. But when that money comes out, that manager now is managing less money and almost ensuring a pay cut.
Wow.
So there's a lot of theories out there of what's going on. But a lot of times, it's just that, number one, they're bound by really not having all the tools in the toolbox to help those modern retirees get to this conversation.
The business model is limited. I
It
mean,
is
that's
very
why
limited.
I left the big box firms. I know you did too.
why I left.
Because they're really limiting us on what we can do and the type of planning we could do. I never wanted, look, I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. My mom and dad worked really hard for
Yeah.
their money. My dad had a Montgomery Ward's catalog store. You remember
yeah.
Montgomery Ward's?
Oh, God, yeah, I
My
do.
grandfather
I'd go
had
through
a...
that at Christmas time, every page.
Yeah.
Because they always stick
Yeah,
together.
right, you
lick and
would.
turn it.
That was the Amazon before Amazon,
Oh,
wasn't it?
absolutely. Spent hours watching a baseball game doing that. My beloved Dreads probably losing to the Pirates.
Yeah, but you know, these are the things that ultimately, my grandfather had a Kirby vacuum cleaner store. Remember Kirby
Oh, I
vacuum?
do, yeah.
You know, so my parents taught me to work really hard. And at the end of the day, what they taught me was work hard, save your money so that eventually someday your money can start to work for you.
Work back for you.
And when I was at the big box firms, what I realized was nobody was teaching anybody how to use their money. They were teaching them how to invest their money and roll the dice with it.
That's right.
And as long as everything was going up, they were heroes, right?
That's right.
But when things started to go south, the only answer they had was, don't worry about it, hang in there, you're in it for the long haul. Yeah. Or my favorite line was, it's just a paper loss.
It's just a paper loss.
Now, I don't know about you, but I invest personally in the market. I know you do too.
Oh, yeah.
To this day, when I lose money in the market, I don't feel like it's a paper loss.
No.
Now, the difference is I've got time before I'm going to need that money.
We're still spring chickens.
A lot of people that are watching this show today, they don't have the time to recover.
They don't.
Another big market loss would be absolutely devastating to them.
Correct.
So I know we've talked about this a lot about protecting the retirement lifestyle, right? But are there alternative strategies out there where people can protect money, still get decent returns? Yeah. And do you guys choose to use that type of stuff in your practice?
You have to use, in this market, in this world, you have to use alternative asset classes and sophisticated option strategies.
Right.
Because that's what's going to propel the modern retiree to cover those necessities and position themselves in a place where they can live that retirement of their dreams. I don't know how else to do that when you look at the stock market down, the massive that it is since the Great Depression, and then look right on top of that, the worst bond market in 41 years. You have to use.
And those alternatives you're talking about is a real hedging of risk versus a lot of people are trying to hedge risk by having bonds in their portfolio, but when you have a positive correlation between stocks and bonds, and you got both of them going down at the same time, you've got no hedging against risk whatsoever.
None at all.
And people need to realize that there's just better ways to approach that.
Absolutely.
Folks, if you're in a position right now where you're concerned about how much risk you're taking or how much money you could potentially lose, or not being able to live the lifestyle that you promised yourself that you were going to live in retirement, or if you think that you're at a place right now where an income plan would make a difference in your life, and I will tell you, if you're 5 years from retirement or retired, an income plan is absolutely necessary. I want you to call the number on the screen and schedule your appointment today. It's 1-888-382-1298. Our team is waiting by. Tell them you want the retirement readiness review and the tax map. Tell them you want the tax map, or scan the QR code at the bottom of the screen. You can schedule. Thanks for joining us.
Call 888-382-1298 now to receive your complimentary tax map with your retirement readiness review. Learn multiple strategies that can protect you from higher taxes now and in the future. Taxes are a threat to your financial stability in retirement. Protect yourself from the potential threat of rising taxes. As a retirement planning financial advisory firm, Brian and his team will help you navigate the financial waters to pursue your retirement goals. Call 888-382-1298 today. Brian and his team provide inclusive retirement services such as investment directives for your portfolio, income-producing strategies, and wealth preservation plans for your family and legacy. Call Brian and his team, 888-382-1298 now for your complimentary tax map with your retirement readiness review. Discover tax strategies to keep more of what you have saved in retirement, or use the QR code below to schedule today.